She was supposed to be the ship of dreams. Crystal chandeliers, the finest china dinner sets, designed to carry royalty, engineered to conquer the oceans, all included to make her unlike anything that had ever sailed before. But over her 30 years of service, she became something else. She didn't just ferry passengers, she carried soldiers, she carried secrets, and eventually, she carried ghosts. On the edge of Long Beach, California, past the strip malls and the sand and the late-night taco joints, there's a ship docked in the harbor, massive, motionless, a floating relic from another time. The Queen Mary, once held as the grandest ocean liner in the world. We came here recently for a haunted tour, the kind of thing designed to spook tourists and sell t-shirts. But somewhere between the ballroom and the boiler deck, our guide started laying out the history. Real deaths, documented accidents, wartime collisions. And the longer we listened, the harder it was to tell where the urban legends ended and where the truth began. To find out, you have to start with what she was built to be, because the Queen Mary didn't begin as a ghost story. She began as a promise. When the Queen Mary launched in 1936, she wasn't just a ship. She was a triumph of British design, faster, sleeker, more luxurious than anything else on the water. She was the future. First-class passengers sipped champagne under crystal chandeliers. There were ballrooms, a music studio. 56 rare woods from across the British Empire were carved into her walls. A floating museum of colonial pride and industrial strength. She could cross the Atlantic in under 4 days. She won speed records. She hosted dignitaries. But even on her first return voyage, someone died. A crew member, buried at sea in secret. No announcement, just the waves. Quietly. In wartime, she wouldn't get that luxury. She was drafted into World War II as a transport ship. The chandeliers were taken down. The decks were stripped. Her bright hull painted over in a dull military gray. She was fast, too fast for torpedoes, and big enough to carry 15,000 troops at once. They called her the Gray Ghost. She was a vessel of movement, of power and silence. Then, on October 2nd, 1942, tragedy struck. The Queen Mary was transporting thousands of soldiers across the North Atlantic when she collided with a British cruiser named the HMS Curacoa. The Queen Mary, traveling at full speed, sliced through the smaller ship, cutting its 6-inch armored hull in half like paper. And the Queen Mary never stopped. Wartime protocol said she couldn't. If she slowed down, she'd risk being torpedoed. So she kept going, and over 300 men died in the frigid waters. The Queen Mary kept moving, but something had changed, and the deaths didn't stop. After World War II ended, the Queen Mary returned to civilian life. She was repainted and reimagined. Once again, she became a luxury liner, sailing families, movie stars, and honeymooners across the Atlantic. But something lingered. In 1949, a man named William Eric Stark died after drinking from a bottle of cleaning fluid, left by mistake in his stateroom. The fluid had been poured into a gin decanter. By the time anyone realized it wasn't gin, it was too late. His agonizing death stretched across several days. From 1950 through the late 1960s, people kept dying aboard the ship. In 1966, a crewman named Charles McCarthy fell from a gangway while disembarking. Their crew found his body floating in the harbor. That same year, an 18-year-old crewman named John Petter was crushed in the engine room by a watertight door, Door 13. It's one of the ship's most infamous fatalities. There were other deaths, heart attacks, strokes, natural causes. Death kept stalking the Queen Mary. By 1967, at least 49 recorded deaths had occurred aboard the ship, civilians and crew. In total, the Queen Mary has seen nearly 400 deaths, not including the ones no one wrote down or accounted for. She was never built for death, but somehow it kept catching up with her. To many, the ship is still restless. People claim they've seen a young man in coveralls in the engine room, just beyond door 13, only for him to vanish into the ship. Others hear the clanging of tools against the pipes when no one's there. Some believe this is the spirit of John Petter. A little girl has been seen near the old swimming pool, soaked and barefoot. The swimming pool is permanently sealed off to visitors now. Then there's cabin B340, so infamous it was closed off to the public for 30 years. Guests have reported that the lights turn off and on, blankets are ripped from the bed in the middle of the night, and on many occasions, guests report haunting screams. Others have seen a woman in white who dances in the old ballroom, footsteps in empty hallways, phantom knocks at cabin doors, whispers in the dark. Whether it's memory or myth, grief or ghost, people are convinced something remains on board. Long Beach may have docked her, but the Queen Mary never fully came to rest. She'd crossed the Atlantic over 1,000 times, carried millions, but the jet age had arrived and her time on the open ocean was up. By the end of the 60s, her voyages were over. She became a hotel and a museum, drawing nearly 2 million people a year at her height. She's been documented extensively in film and television series, cementing her place as a cultural icon. Visitors have hosted their private events, holiday parties, and even weddings on her deck. But beneath the lights and champagne toasts, the past doesn't vanish just because the ship stopped moving. It stays in the silence, in the stillness, in the echoes of lives that refuse to leave. Is the Queen Mary haunted? We may never know for sure. She was meant to be a floating palace, but for some, she became a tomb, a final stop of silence and still. Decades later, the ship still draws people in, not for where she's headed, but for what she can't seem to leave behind.